Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my review of Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. So at the front, I've been flirting with the idea of reviewing and I've been apprehensive without going into it too much because I do want to stay on topic. But I'm incredibly disillusioned with the current state of the games industry and the way that people review, right? The fact that we seem to worship video essayists, aspiring people that want to be hired in as writers into the industry. I don't like it and I don't necessarily relate to a lot of these people. I'm a nerd. I play games. Story is a good secondary component, but at the end of the day, I earn my money, I want my gameplay, and I want someone that reflects that value judgment, and I'm just kind of sick of that not existing, so bugger it. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. So a lot of this is off the cuff. I will edit it, but I'm not writing a bloody essay. I'm not even going to necessarily take dot points. I've spent my time with the game, and I'm going to tell you what I think. Further to that, I'm going to work out a few ground rules for my format, namely the price point. I'm sick of us being gaslit into saying, oh, well, it's a $100 game, but it's okay that it's only got 2 hours of content. No, right? If you ask for a certain price tag, you better give me a certain amount of gameplay. Within reason, of course. None of this dollar per hour nonsense. In fact, for the moment, I'm sitting on $5 for an hour. If I give you $10 for a game, you better give me 2 hours of good, clean gameplay. I don't think that's unfair. But as I do more reviews, we will massage this system. With all that out of the way and just front-loading what you need to know, Return to Moria is actually a really good game. It's extremely fun. It's definitely multiplayer first, though, right? Your mileage is going to vary if you don't play it multiplayer. To say that this is a Valheim-like would be a massive understatement. However, it's doing some really original, cool stuff under its own steam, but it's definitely in that genre, right? If you've got Dark Souls likes, then I submit to you that you have Valheim likes. So if you don't like Valheim, will you not like this game? There's actually a good chance that that's the case, right? Unless you're a Tolkien nut, it's doing a lot different, but probably not enough different to sell you. So if you vehemently hate Valheim for whatever reason, you've got no friends, all these sort of things, then you probably aren't going to get around this. Me, myself, personally, I sit sort of on the fringe of it. I can't handle too much grinding. I don't play a lot of MMOs, and a lot of people that I talk to feel the same way about Valheim in that it's great until it's not. A lot of people check out at the swamp or the snow biome or the plains or whatever it is, but you essentially grind like anything for that tier of gear, and then you get to the next biome, and then you have to do it except exponentially harder, 4 times as much crap to grind. It's fun until the grind wears you down. Same thing can be said for Return to Moria. Do I regret playing it? Not at all. It's Australian $55, which by my current math, it better give me 11 hours of good, clean gameplay, and it absolutely did. I've clocked in more like 20, 24, something like that. I split it between single-player playthrough and multiplayer, but definitely I got my 11 hours out of multiplayer, and I would call that great. So that too long didn't read. It's worth your money. It's worth your time. Anything beyond that's a bonus as far as I'm concerned. All right, so let's talk about the loop. I've mentioned Valheim, but maybe you don't know what that is, right? That's the one that sort of cracked this whole genre open into this clean meta loop, which would be you come into a biome or an area, you want to play this sort of multiplayer, you interact with resources, like you pick up stone, wood, things like that, and they in turn will generate recipes for you. You pick up a piece of wood, you can make an axe, right? And so then you make the axe, and then you'll get buildings like forges and all that sort of stuff. So this is the model laid out by Valheim, and there has obviously been survival crafting games before, but this clean loop is the king one at the moment, and that's what Return to Moria does. So, you know, punch a wall until you get some rocks, then you got a new recipe, you can make a pickaxe, that sort of thing. Beyond that, it's tiered, which is to say, within a biome, you're kind of expected to roll the certain gear at the time. So tier 1 armor, that sort of thing, cool. Tier 2, tier 3, and then the grind goes on from that and then becomes potentially insufferable. So yeah, it works around a tier, and that's where your fatigue might come in, right? So like the game's pretty good at obfuscating that sort of dry information. It's not like pickaxe +1, pickaxe +7, but it's still there when you mouse over it. Tier 1, tier 2, that sort of thing. I've heard people complain about the combat. The combat isn't fantastic. However, you also have to go into it knowing what the combat's supposed to be in this sort of genre. It is not something you are supposed to engage with primarily as a source of XP or even a source of the core loop. Think of it more as a side component, an embuggerance, if you will, right? These monsters are going to harass you, they're going to attack your base, that sort of stuff, and you're fighting them if only because they are something thrown in your way. And this is no different from Valheim. So your actual skill ceiling, your skill cap, your ability and interplay in combat is fairly shallow. And this is intended, which I think some people miss. If you find yourself in a tier 2 environment and you've got tier 1 gear, you're going to get your shit kicked in. You are going to just die from attrition. And so that is your general loop. Get to the right tier at the right area, progress. Now, again, I'm going to keep comparing it to Valheim because that's my touchstone and that's clearly where the inspiration comes from and that's clearly the audience that it's meant for. In Valheim, one of the best parts of the core loop is the sort of food buff interplay. Your health bar never actually increases. You don't level up in Valheim, not really, if I recall. What you do is you cook up different meals and you have room in your stomach for so much food and you choose either, maybe I want to stack my health by eating boar meat or something, and that will give you more HP, or maybe you want to drink honey for more stamina, right? Maybe you're going to go out in there and become the bloody harvester for the day, and this other dude's going to be the tank, right? So the build diversity comes from interplay with consumables, which is fantastic, and I want to see more of that in games. It's different in Moria. I wouldn't say better, but they're trying different things. Food buffs are less of a thing in this. You have to eat. There is a food mechanic, and if you run out of food, you start taking chip damage, and you can't sleep, you can't save, that sort of thing. And if you eat more complex meals, you will get a buff, but that's the extent of it. The way that this game does it is it's about buff management. So the food is one example. So again, to go back to Valheim, it's all about food, pretty much. It's about cuisine within there. In this, the food just provides you with one buff, right? You have the food, you get well fed. Another example, you can build treasure piles, which is really, really clever. You collect gold as you go through Moria, and you build this pile of treasure, and you can admire it because you're a greedy little dwarf, and you're all like, yeah. And you get this essentially G'd up bonus. I can't remember specifically what it is. I think maybe you kill more, and the bigger the treasure pile, the more jacked you are, basically. So there's another buff. So you're trying to string all these stackable buffs together as this version of Valheim's cuisine. Again, it's doing it a little bit different. Is it better? I will say different. You can build a monument to fallen dwarves because you can find like little remains because you're reclaiming Moria. It's very much in world, in theme, and the theme is brilliant, by the way, and all the lore is really, really cool. But you can build a monument, and then you can look at that, and that will give you a buff as well. And then there's the singing merriment, which is about as Tolkien as it could get, and it's very dwarf-like as well. So if you start digging at ore patches, like because you're in Moria, and that's one of the resources that you cook with, iron ore, that sort of stuff, your dude can get inspired and start singing, right? And then you can join in as well. So one of the boys is over there banging away with his pickaxe. You can hear him singing. You go over there and you jump on that song. All you got to do is press the sing button, and they start harmonizing and singing all the different parts, and then you just get this whole big old bloody event, and there's nothing like it. It's really cool. I'm having a sing if someone wants to get in on it.
Oh shit, the goblins tunnel.
Yeah, they're sort of watching you.
Dawn is at hand.
Oh, get in on it. Some singing.
My one true love, take with you this sad sheet.
This is so good.
Pearl as pure as northern light, to prove my love to thee.
I feel like they've really missed an opportunity that you should get like a multiplier, or if you do, it's not clear, but like maybe the buff gets doubled if you have two dudes singing to encourage the group merriment. I mean, you do it anyway because you're getting into the game and you're having a blast, but I feel like it should actually really reward you for group singing. And it's not just the ore as well, right? So you can brew up tankards of ale, and it's sort of a two-step buff, this one, where everyone grabs a mug of ale and you can join in the song, and I've got some clips of that, and it's brilliant.
Write it down here in case you die.
Drink, sing,
You're
hole.
walking back.
How do I do that?
You seen the colour of
Over
the
this
stuff?
way, mate. Just one that's not claimed. I think this one beside me.
Round the keenest grin, cascading
Here we go.
from
Hey,
the
Dom,
chin.
don't miss out. Come get a drink.
A beard as bright as brass. Kind eyes
How old are you spilling it all, mate?
bring me something.
If you go next to this over here, Dom, you can take a mug.
My lover,
There you go. Now hold left click.
Dora knows that she's the kingdom's finest lass. Keeps me warm and keeps me sweet. Brings the blazing auburn heat. My lover's got a beard as bright as brass.
Everyone's just having a big old sing around the campfire. And that doesn't give you a buff. It gives you like a pre-buff that once you go to bed and sleep on that, get buzzed, go to sleep. When you wake up, you get like a day-long super buff. So there's these complex buff stacks that you're trying to juggle. And that is actually the core of getting ahead with your game. Base building's in there. It's functional. It works. You build around a hearth. You have like mapstone, travel points, that sort of thing. You explore all these cool set piece areas, and I don't want to ruin it all too much, but it's so much love has gone into this game. It kind of boggles my mind how little fanfare there was around it. The price point at first blush seems a bit high because everyone will compare it to Valheim, but of course they've got to pay for the license. And at the same time, this is one of the most Tolkien fan love projects I've ever played. But absolutely, I think you want to play this multiplayer. Single player, it depends, and a lot of that will be fashioned by your tolerance for playing a game like these single player. Like, let's just be very clear, they're not supposed to be played single player. But again, to compare to Valheim, if you enjoyed grinding that on your lonesome, and I'm sure there are people, but your niche, but you will enjoy this as well. This is definitely something where you want to try and bully a bunch of the boys in and get around it. I will say that we had a few lag moments, a few netcode issues during some big fights that got some of the boys killed. I was hosting all the time, so I didn't really see it. There was some desync issues that seemed to get patched. Unfortunately, it wasn't until like a week or two after release, but they did get patched. Things like guys not being able to interact with crafting spots and treasure chests is actually pretty significant problems that could be fixed with a disconnect, but each dude in the entire lobby would have to do it half a dozen times over the course of a few hours. So it wasn't great, but it looked like it was getting better. Just back to the singing thing as well, there are some narrative components to this game, it's cool. When I was playing it single player, reading all the lore, it's really interesting. It's actually really well done. But when you're piss farting around with all the boys in Discord, you're not going to read any of that stuff. You're going to miss all of that. And one of the things is there's like a through line about Durin, who's essentially a godlike figure for the dwarves. You can, at certain points, repair his statues. There are little recipe statues you repair along the way that give you, you can craft boots or gloves or whatever. But you come across these big Durin statues. And once you repair that, it goes into essentially like an act complete musical number. And it's got to be the best implementation of musical anything I've ever seen in any game. I'm very funny about singing in video games, musical video games. It's not very common, but it often reads masturbatory. It's less interested in entertaining and giving a value add to you, the consumer, the player, and more about trying to give a bloody soapbox to some aspiring B-grade voice actor in the games industry. But these moments, singing at Durin's statue especially, are great. These are the memories that you will carry with you as a gamer for years.
Didn't even rebuild the monument.
What monument?
This one right here that you can sing to.
Oh, the Sing Boys.
Hey, some fucking music.
The world was young, the mountains green.
This is good.
No stain yet on the moon was seen. No words were laid on stream or stone when Durin woke and walked alone. He named the nameless hills and dells. He drank from yet untasted wells. He stooped and looked in nearer mirror and saw a crown of stars appear as gems upon a silver thread above the shadow of his
Oh, good.
head.
Old mate Goblin over there's just sitting there having a watch.
How good was that?
Till Durin wakes from sleep.
Back to guttural Russian. I have finished singing class for today, Father. Tragically, though, if one random dude runs off and builds it and then accidentally presses the roll button away from it, it cancels it and you can't repeat it, and you've just lost this gameplay-defining moment that everyone was running back to join. And oh, whoops, sorry, no backsies, no reroll. So that's probably something that should be fixed. Another really cool, innovative, well, I would say borrowed mechanic from all things Destiny. I haven't played Destiny in forever, and Destiny 2, I presume, does the same thing. You've got these masterwork items, and I think Destiny did the same. The idea is that you can have one of these super legendary named items, special magic trinkets, and it goes in a special slot, and you can only carry one, and that's it. And I think it's very Tolkien-like in this because it's evocative of Galadriel giving the Fellowship their special little bloody, here you go, here you go, Frodo, here's a friggin' magic Rubik's Cube. Carry that around, right? And in this, the ones that we've come across is like there's a super duper shield, which, is kind of generic but works. There's like a keg that you can fill up and bring on the road, and so if you're in a long adventure away from home, old mate can crack out the keg and everyone can get on the piss and have a sing. And that's great fun. You can see him carrying the keg on his back or over his shoulder. Another one was this like really cool torch that like it was kind of Gandalf level, runed up, blasts magic light everywhere. It was kind of a must-have once we got it. Speaking of runes, you can craft all that sort of crap into your weapons, and that looks really cool. You can get the orc rune pretty much straight out of the gate, so your sword starts glowing blue as soon as orcs rock up nearby. So, safe to say, I really enjoyed my time with it. I've hung it up for now because, like Valheim, I've gotten to a point where we're into a new biome and we're going to have to grind bloody 20 black diamonds or whatever it is all over again. And the general consensus at the time was we need a break from this. This doesn't mean I won't go back to it, but again, under my sort of system for review that I'm working out, I got my hours worth of fun out of this game for the price point that it's asking. And I honestly couldn't ask for more. I'm happy to put it down, show some restraint, and say that I had a really good time with what I played. But there is a good chance that I come back to it once I get the itch. There are lots of cool set-piece moments as well. I don't really want to spoil them, but huge boss fights. Some of them were bad. Fighting trolls was fun for the first 10 seconds. And then you realise that they're pretty much impervious to arrows. They're bullet sponges. You can't block them, so you have to roll. So if you're a dude that's building a shield block tank build, it doesn't really work. And you have to chip away at them. And I think one of the trolls we got wiped, but a random mob of goblins rocked up and killed the troll. So that wasn't great. But then, for example, and it's a light spoiler, I won't go into it too much, but there is a sequence where you fight a watcher, one of those like octopus Cthulhu dudes, and that was actually really brilliant. You have aspects of light raiding, similar to something like Destiny raid mechanics, that you would have a bunch of ads attacking the group and you'd have to control them with the tanks, and then you'd have people with crossbows trying to shoot the Watcher in the special points when he tries to attack the entire Fellowship. It's not super cerebral, it's not going to break the bank, but it required a bit of coordination, and I think it was actually quite perfect. It makes me want to see what the other bosses are later on, but probably not enough to grind for 1 billion diamonds. Anyway, look, that's my review. It's just me sitting here. I'll chop it up and I'll cut out the bloody ums and that sort of stuff. But no dot points, no friggin' essays. I'm not an aspiring art student. I'm a man of engineering means. I'm more familiar with writing lab reports and all that sort of stuff. So I hope that this reads as genuine and honestly of the people, of the gamers. I don't want to necessarily throw shade as I step into the review space, but I heard about reviewers giving this game things like bloody 4 or 5s out of 10 and playing it solo, and it just boggles my mind. It's like, how disconnected from gamers do you have to be? So bugger it, I'll give it a go. Let me know what you reckon. Give me some feedback around this sort of format, but to be honest, this is where I'm comfortable. Kind of just play the game, enjoy it, rant. It's how you would recommend a game to your mate at the water cooler at work, at the office that you hate. You hate everyone there, but you found that one mate that likes that game. Anyway, look, if you've got any feedback around this format, feel free to, let me have it. That's fine. But this is probably how it's going to go. Fairly, dare I say, casual, but organic, honest. I'm not really interested in trying to win a Pulitzer for my B-grade fucking Netflix prospectus essay. I'd rather just play the game, tell you if the game's good, if it's worth your money, if it's fun. And it is. So that's enough. Goodbye.